Now, if you want to blow the mind of a kid, just go to the App Store right now and buy Upsies from our next speaker. It's Galvin Scott Davis from Blind Mice Studios. Thank you.
Hello, how you doing? Right, I'm going to. It's been interesting listening to everybody else speak. There's actually a fair amount of stuff that I'll probably repeat. I think we all seem to be in the same industry and the same mindset, so it's good that everybody is sort of talking about the same stuff. I'll start. Sorry, I use the opening doorway effect just to really give it a bit of impact as it comes up with that first slide. I'll just explain who I am and where I'm from. My talk today is going to be about bringing out the geek in the designer and the artist in the developer. I'm actually from two companies today, from Protein and Blind Mice. I was director and founder of Protein, which has been going for 10 years now, quite successfully. Brand development, web, interactive, etc. And that's been going along really nicely for about 10 years. And then about 3 years ago, when mobile came out, we decided we wanted to get into that space. And purely through a few different reasons. One, just taking on too many things, as most of us all do when we start our own business. And also not really having the skill sets to do mobile. I co-founded a company called Blind Mice Studios with two others. Obvious reasons for that is that you then get the parity of having more than one person helping you out, and obviously in the skill sets that I didn't have, which was development and design, not to any degree that I need to be able to do this, that's for sure. Blind Mice seemed like a perfect match. In many ways it actually was. So today I'd like to talk about a thing that really, coming from web, there's always been a bit of a gulf between the designer and the developer. I don't know why that is, but for some reason there's always been this little sort of gap that I think we need to try and bridge and sort of overlap. Whereas in mobile development, I found, being in Blind Mice, that actually that overlap is there and it makes for much better work. So when we started Blind Mice Studios, there were three of us. Myself as the innovator, Alan Rogers as the developer, and Mark Tanner as the designer. I think there was a few reasons why the apps that we made worked when we had the company. And one of the main reasons for that really was the fun that we had. I think a lot of people have talked about that already, that you want to have fun when you're making these applications. It really does come through when you do that. And that comes through working very well together. The perfect mix really is if you can have these 3 points to your company. I think if you can bring innovation, design and development to your business or to your app itself, it really kind of shines through. I had been a bit of a developer and a bit of a designer in my previous life in Protein, so I had a few skill sets which could overlap with these guys. I was almost like the sort of Dr. Frankenstein to the monster and the bride, if you will. I could sit there and sort of push these guys together. As we started the business, as you guys obviously probably have done as well in a cafe, over a cup of coffee, it was apparent that we were very different. And the way we dressed was slightly differently, the way we spoke was slightly different, being designers and developers. But that wasn't a bad thing. And in fact, I think right at the beginning, we realized that those differences were actually the things that made the apps stronger. I'll just explain a little bit more by introducing the mice. So from day one, I think this is pretty much how we all saw the developer, especially as a mouse, as Pinky, huge brain. Alan Rogers, you're out there, I know you're out there, mate, is the guy with the biggest brain in the house. If you don't believe me, a year ago he won an Oscar for having a big brain, so I guarantee he wins hands down. And I guess this is how we all saw each other. Mark and I were sitting there thinking, God, this guy's so clever, and he was. And we needed him, but it probably wasn't the right image. And at the same time, as designers, this is kind of how we saw ourselves. Ooh, look at me, look at my big shiny red pants. And I'm sure Alan thought that as well, which was okay. It was okay to be different. We were all mice, and it was all kind of working. Whereas in reality, when you start a business, really, this is how we should have seen each other. Notice the vacant stare and the caffeine hits and the malnutrition. Because when you start a business, it's hard. It's you're relying on other people. You're relying on people that may have been friends for a while, may have come from other disciplines, and you really have to lean on each other. The fact was, though, as geeks and artists, that what we realised when we sat down was that whichever jobs we did, we had to find a challenge in them. Having worked in protein for 10 years, and again, many of you would have come out of agencies or government jobs, etc. There's a lethargy to working with business type projects all the time. It really gets you down. And so, we'd done quite well in protein for 9 years, but moving into the mobile space, we really wanted to set ourselves some challenges. And I think we really did that in the first job that we went for, which was an app called Ask the Butcher. Yes, we did a butcher app. We basically went out and we sold or pitched a meat cooking app to one of our existing clients. Fortunately, he was a butcher, otherwise that would have been quite embarrassing. And we set ourselves a challenge. The challenge was, how do we make dead animals look good on an iPhone? And we did that. We sat down and essentially the process went like this. We for the first time, we got a budget. We got a budget for an app, and it was quite exciting for us. I know there's been a bit of chat today about, not chasing the money, but when you do have a startup business and you do have wages to pay, you've got kids or whatever it might be, you still do need those budgets at the beginning. There's a cost of living. So the process of doing this app was, we didn't know where we were at the start. We sat down. It was all of our first app. But we found that as we sat down, we talked. And the more that we talked, the more we discovered about each other's skills. The more we discovered about each other's skills, the more we absorbed. The more we absorbed, the better the app became. So we carried on talking. There was a lot of talking went on, basically. But we realised that by learning each other's skills, or at least having an understanding of it, the app seemed to get better and better. It looked better every week as we went through and did new iterations. It felt better as we were making it better and better in terms of development. One of the things that I realised was that by sitting closely with each other on the creative and on the development side, was that essentially we took the left and right hand sides of the brain and we formed one whole brain between the three of us. And for anybody that's worked in some Sydney agencies, you'll know that one whole brain in an agency is quite a rarity. So we found that simply by sitting with each other, the osmosis of Alan would sit with us over with the graphics, and whilst he was sitting with us, I think he realised and came to the point where we weren't simply pixel pushers anymore. We weren't simply people that were good at Photoshop. By sitting with us and having a talk with us, and he worked very closely with Mark, what he was able to see was that actually the graphics had some formula to them. We were using pixel perfect graphics. The graphics were designed to fit snugly to his code. We respected his code. And by the end of it, I think that Alan probably saw some patterns and some systems and could see that our graphics actually had development in them as well. At the other end of the table, Mark and I would sit with Alan, and we were fascinated by his code. His code was clean. There was actually a design to his code. It was almost like a tapestry. So the more we absorbed about what he did, the more that we actually appreciated that he was an artist. I think quite often we talk about developers as geeks and nerds, but they're actually artists as well. And likewise, I think that designers actually have a developer in them. We have to do that when we're doing things that are for devices like this, for instance. The result of the app was, I think, a beautiful looking app. We won a lot of awards. It was the #1 top paid lifestyle app. I know somebody else was talking today about how exciting it is when you first release your app and you're looking through the charts and you start texting each other. This came out just before Christmas, which was perfect timing. And I can remember I was in Melbourne and Alan was in Sydney, and I think Mark might have been in the UK. And one of them texted, "We're in the top 50, we're in the top 50. I checked my phone, it's fantastic. We're 46, we're 44, 43. And it was just amazing. Every single hour we were constantly updating our phones and looking at it. People at the dinner table were saying, "Put the fucking phone down, will you?" I was like, no, we're top 10, we're top 8. We're 7, we're 6, we're 5, we're 4. Jamie Oliver's shitting his pants. And actually for 2 very short moments, 2 short days, we actually kicked that cocky cockney off the top spot, and it was fantastic. It was great. Kushti, as you might say. Apple really embraced the app, which again seems ridiculous. This is a butcher. It's a butcher's app, and it was #1. It was our first app. It was a lot of fun. And again, this is what I'm talking about, is this collaboration between design and development. It creates fun, it creates engagement in that small group, and it gets pushed out to the app. We also used to promote the iPhone 4, which was very special for us as well. So following that, I guess what happened then was that a lot of companies came to us and said, "Wow, we've seen this Ask the Butcher app. We really want you to do our app." And it was business apps, and we're very proud of them. And what we did again was set ourselves a challenge. Most business apps are as dry and pointless as a Lady Gaga concert, but these you've got to find a difference in them. So we did one called Torch Media, and again we approached it not as a calculus application, which is essentially what it was. But what we approached it as was, how can we make it different? How can we make it more interesting? There was a big formula in the back of this, which Alan stripped out and turned into this beautiful little calculator here. Again, got new and noteworthy, what's hot stuff favourite, #1 business app for essentially this very simple app. So that was the collaboration of both sides. We then we decided, great, let's do our own app. Let's own some content. So we decided to do Upsies. Now, word of warning, if you're going to do an augmented reality app, it's pretty painful. We put our heart and soul into this for about 4-5 months maybe. Lots of development time, lots of testing, and ultimately we're very proud of it. I mean, essentially we created an app where you have a 3D ball inside the phone. I mean, it literally came out from the idea of us sitting there and one of us going, oh, what if you could kick a ball in the phone? The Soccer World Cup's coming up, let's do it. We got the #1 kids game. We invested a lot of time, a lot of heart and soul in it. Didn't necessarily pan out in a financial sense, but it's very good. You should download it. And Russell stole my thunder. We got an email from Steve Jobs. I thought I was the only one. It was a nice email. It kind of went something like, yeah, good luck with that. It's funny when you get a sarcastic email. It was lovely. It was lovely of him to do it. But it's the biggest lesson that I learned from Upsies, I think that we all learned from Upsies, is what we did with this app was we created an app that was for one specific user, and that was somebody with an iPhone 4. No iPods could use it because it needed a camera. There was no good on the first iPad. If you're going to make an app, try and make it for the widest audience possible. What we actually did, the thing that I'm very proud about this app is that nobody else did it like this, and it's a wonderful thing for us to show people, but a lot of time and effort. And then the next app that we did was another business app called RMK, and again, just a really wonderful way for us to show how can we take an app that essentially is a voice casting app where you go in and you find different talent and then you listen to them. What we did was go, okay, great, well, let's turn it into this retro cassette speaker. There were other competitors out there, and again, this has been very successful for the client. There was no point in doing these apps unless we're going to do something we're proud of. So one of the things I would say, two pieces of advice I'll give you just coming off the back of the Blind Mice stuff. The first one is surround yourself with the most talented people. You can't do it all. I can't do it all. So you go out and you get the most talented people. I got the most talented developer and I got the most talented designer, and that's why we were a success. So make connections today. Surround yourself with the most talented people. And the other one is don't do apps that you're not invested in. So yeah, sometimes we do have to do business apps, and it is a reality. You have to make money, but if you're going to do it, break the boundaries, push the client. If they want you to do something very, very simple UI kit, just say no. Just do something interesting with it. And ultimately, you're only as good as your last app. So, So, the big thing that came out of Blind Mice was that, for me, especially coming out of web, is that we had, we'd answered that question that I've always asked, which is, how do you bridge that elusive gap that rears its ugly head when you do projects, which is you have a developer, you have a designer, they're very different people, but how do we share the love? And we managed to do that. So essentially these two little critters became this. This is how we saw each other. We recognised our biggest assets, and Alan, your brain is that big, it's huge. This is where we ended up. We ended up with this really symbiotic relationship, and it was wonderful, and it still is wonderful. So just moving forward, I'll move into protein just in a second. What I wanted to do, I've got some examples just to really illustrate what I'm talking about, is what happens if we don't do this? What happens if we don't pull these two sides together? What happens if one side wins the war over the other? So I went and looked at some apps, and I've changed the names of these apps because I don't want to upset anybody, and there was a bucket load of these crappy apps on there. But I just wanted to show, just to illustrate the point, a couple of apps that what happens if one side wins the war over the other. So the first one is a mystery meat app, which kind of reflects our Ask the Butcher. So because nothing says I'm hungry like a severed hand floating over a slab of raw meat. This is a real app. I didn't do this, obviously, but the developer has won this, obviously. It's disgraceful. I actually bought this app and downloaded it just to look at some of the screenshots on there. There's just no thought to the aesthetic, no thought to the design. But ultimately, you're then creating an app that nobody wants. All you're doing is cluttering the marketplace. Second one, mystery lanyard app. And you can find these if you're really clever. Why hang a small plastic lanyard from your neck when you can hang a $1,000 investment that says it all? Hello, my name is Steve. No, sir. Your name is Dickhead if you're wearing this around your neck at a conference. But the designers won this. It's a graphic. It's pointless. There is no development. I mean, why would you do this? You're cluttering the marketplace. So I encourage you to meet, if you're a developer, meet a great designer. If you're a designer, meet a great developer today here. So that leads us on to Protein Studios. Blind Mice we've wound down for the moment. And Protein Studios, my existing company, we've now taken on the mobile development. And one of the things that I realised, which again was a really important lesson to learn from Blind Mice, was that creating content for yourself is the thing to do. That is, if you create content for yourself, it's going to come from here. It's not going to come from the back pocket. And you're going to end up with apps that you're proud of. Okay, so financially you're not going to do very well, trust me, unless you get a hit. But that's not the point. The point is that eventually you will get one that hits. That's usually what happens if you do your job well. Sorry, I'm just moving this up. So, again, what we've done in our company is maintain those 3 key points that we started the business with: innovation, design, and development. And the first of these apps that we did, now this is, again, this is the wonderful thing about these devices, is that I'm also a writer and a director, and I had a graphic novel for years and years that I really wanted to do. I had it written, wanted to take it to a print publisher and get it out there, took it to a print publisher. They said, oh, no, we need to have the idea, we need to own the IP. And I was like, no, I own the IP, I own the characters, I own, etc. And they said, no, well, you can print the graphic novel, but we want 50%, and that's after you've paid for the print costs and the transportation costs and the distribution costs and blah, 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 and blah, blah. And it was just a nightmare. So then the iPad came out, and I went, it was fantastic. And we haven't sold hardly any, but that's not the point. The point is I got to work with a really talented illustrator and some great developers, and we put together this fantastic graphic novel. And what we did again was look at the innovation. How can we make it different? So we got a composer, and I said, okay, well, this is supposed to be a movie, so let's compose a movie soundtrack. Let's put a movie soundtrack on there. Let's get people to put their headphones on and immerse them in this world. And most fun I've ever had on an application, that and Ask the Butcher. And very, very happy with how it's come out. But I now own this. I own this content. It becomes, I'm now a published author. Someone said to me, you're not a published author? I am now. Okay, it came out of my back pocket, but I am now. We're now doing a kids book, Dandelion. So we are still doing client apps, but actually what we're doing, and I think this is one of the things you want to consider if it's a business, is try and make the client apps work for you so that you can put money aside to do your own apps, create your own content. That's really where the future is. And somebody referenced Limbo earlier, which I'm sure most of you have played it. It's a fantastic game. This is a little kids book that we're doing called Dandelion. Very dark, gothic little tale. Again, we had a few people that we did user testing on, and one of the user testers said, oh, it's very dark. I went, yeah, it's supposed to be dark. And they were like, oh, you want more people to download it. I said, no, I want to put my story out there. The good thing about this is you control your story. You don't have to be edited by other people. This is coming along really well at the moment. Beautiful little thing. We're doing some nice little mechanics with it where you can blow the dandelions, and we may get 10 sales. Who cares? We'll have a wonderful piece of content and we'll be able to show it to people, and that's kind of the point. And we've just done a free app called the Clean Brief Project. This is kind of an app that's basically promoting what I'm just talking about, which is we've created this free app where you can download it for clients and for businesses, and you can fill in a really simple foundation brief for people to fill out, to basically say, look, don't come to us with, hey, how much is a mobile app? Fill this out first and give people some information. And again, it's something that what we've done is taken something that on the surface could be really boring, and we've made it fun. We've got these little good, fast, and cheap, but you guys probably know that as well. But essentially put 3 cards in front of a client and say good, fast, and cheap. Pick any 2, but you can't have all 3. We've just done the same thing with milkshakes. Inventive, I guess. So one of the things we do at Protein now is that we have adopted what we did at Blind Mice. So we have the design team here and we have the developers here. What we do on every project is we take one of the designers and we take them over to the developers and we sit them with the developer for an hour and we say, sit with the developer, watch what they do, study their code, see what they do. We're not going to let you use the keyboard because if you do that, it's going to be fucking awful. But just watch what they do, get an understanding of it, look at the patterns, look at things, and then talk with the developer and find out, why can't I have rounded corners on that box, which is always the main one that comes up for some ridiculous reason. But at least then you'll know. And then we grab the developer and we sit them with the designer and we say, sit with them for an hour, study how they do the graphics, understand why the UI is that way, understand why that button has to be glossy, like every Apple button, and sit with them and learn about it. Again, we're not going to let you touch Photoshop because if you do, it's going to look like the Meet app that I just had up there before. But the difference is you get that overlap and all of a sudden you get this understanding, this innate understanding, and it comes out in the applications. And I think pretty much every single speaker that's been up here today, their apps have that. They look beautiful and they work beautiful. They don't work separately. So I guess in terms of inspiration, this is probably a very, very obvious one, but when we started the business of Blind Mice, and again sort of rolling into the protein piece, whenever you're going to look for inspiration, you look to the top and you look at the competitors around you. You go and study apps, the kinds of apps that you like, you study the companies that you like, and you try and draw inspiration from them. It's certainly something that we've tried to do right from the very, very start, and it's lovely to be up here talking with some of the people that we actually referenced when we were at Blind Mice, which is fantastic. Anybody that's going to start a business, one of the things I would do straight away is don't only find somebody that's a good business person, find someone that's a friend. You'll always want to go in your different routes. So Alan, for instance, now lives in Melbourne, so our loss is Melbourne's gain. But find someone that's your friend as well, because if you can do that, it means that you're always going to work together, everything's going to be amicable. I wouldn't necessarily find a stranger and jump into bed with them, unless that's your thing. But I think a lot of guys here have talked about community, and there definitely is a community amongst this industry that we're in. And look, I'm not a developer. I've probably got the smallest brain here. I'm an inventor. I like inventing things. I like coming up with ideas and then handing it out to the brains in the audience and the pencils in the audience, and working with them. And I might play with it a little bit, etc., etc. But the beauty of actually having an invention, putting that chemistry together and seeing it come to life on these devices is there's no other feeling in the world when you release your first app, or if you release an app and you start seeing it become successful. I'm sure you've all done that. What we don't want to do is fill the app store. And I think especially from Australia, Australia, we've got so much talent here. There's no need to create terrible apps. There's brilliant apps that come out of here. So it's just keep that level going up and up. And again, coming back to inspiration. So, obviously one of the things that we do, there's some inspiration for you. It's my company. So I think there's a different slide in there. Obviously you always look to the top. And I don't think it's any coincidence at all that this man is a designer and a developer. I mean, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's no coincidence. He's inspirational, innovative, original. If you see my headshot on the website, I've kind of modelled it on this one. It's very similar, scarily similar actually, without the glasses. But it's no coincidence that he does both things. And he said, "Think different." I think think different and together. The roles aren't exclusive of designer and developer. They're cognitive to each other. If we don't adhere to those simple principles, then we're merely stubborn enough to think that we're just good at one thing and that we can't learn and grow together to become other things. And of course, if we do that, then we become arrogant, stale, and useless. If that happens, we may all end up looking a little bit like this. So that's me done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Galvin. That was fantastic. It really was.